Here we are again. It's a Monday morning. It's just after 8:30 and I'm live again with a property finance Q&A. If you've been here before, then you'll know the drill. And that drill is you pop some questions in the chat box and I'll answer them. And the questions should be about property finance because that's what I'm skilled in, if you want to put it that way. How's that? Well, because I spent 20 plus years as a broker and brokered pretty much everything from simple buy-to-let mortgages, every other type of mortgage, and a massive bridging loans in particular, development loans too, literally hundreds of bridging loans. And I teach people how to be intelligent when they use bridging loans and use them as a as a plus and not a minus. Get bridging wrong and it can be a liability. Get it right and it can be a very flexible tool indeed in helping you make money from property projects. So we're going to see a couple of people saying good morning there. So good morning, always good to see people tuning in. Whether you're coming in from YouTube or a number of Facebook pages or Facebook groups that I broadcast this out to, wherever you are, welcome. So got a question about property finance, stick it in the box and I'll answer it. I say I'll hang around for about half an hour to answer questions, but it seems to take longer than that because I can't get through all the questions in half an hour. So, but I will stay as long. And if you join this, but you can't stay for the whole time, that's okay, because whichever channel you're looking at it through, it'll be there on a replay. So you can watch the replay. And some people hang around for the whole thing. Some people watch the start, but then have to leave, go to work or whatever it is, or nip out, and they'll catch the balance on a replay. And some people miss the start and catch the later bit. But you can, and some people miss it altogether because they can't get here. But whichever way you do it, watch it live, watch it on the replay, all good. If you're watching the replay, let me know you're watching the replay because otherwise I don't know. So just put #replay if you're watching the replay. So a few more people saying good morning, and we've got a question there which has popped up, so we're going to do that. So, but I've got another question that came in last night in preparation from Russell Walsh. So I'm going to cut and paste that question, and we'll start off by answering that. That seems a good place to start if we can do that. So got this saved on a different area. So we're going to pop this in there, see if that works. There we are. Yeah. So yeah, what we do here is you ask questions and I answer them. So that's a pretty simple premise, isn't it? Not too difficult to grasp that. So got a question, ping it in and we'll deal with it. But let's start with Russell's first, because he actually popped that in there. So here we are. So let's just pick that one there. So Russell Walsh says, and he's actually a member of my Recycle Your Cash Facebook group, which I'll give you a link to in a minute. So here we are. So hi Kevin, question for Monday's Q&A. There we are. See, got in early. I'm looking at a cash buyer property for 220,000. So what that means is that it's I'm still here. You can't see me because of this, but I always think it's important to put these questions up on screen because you can read them as well as me talking to them. So you'll have to make do with my top of my head for this one. Right. So cash buyer property generally means that it's not mortgageable in its current condition for whatever could be a variety of reasons. There are a number of reasons why properties aren't mortgageable, but you know, whatever it is, and sometimes you see this on estate agents' blurb where it says cash buyers only. Often it will be in uppercase with triple asterisks either end, just so you get the point. Okay, so it's one of these. We don't know why it's unmortgageable, but it probably is something wrong with it. Okay, and as long as it's fixable, no problem at all. You know, you can buy an unmortgageable property, fix it up, make it mortgageable. Happy days. Obviously, your numbers have got to be right, so you make money, not lose money on that. Okay. So this needs a full reservation that I estimate will come in at around 50 to 65k. Okay. So looking at a property on the market for 220, needs 50 to 65k spending on it, and it's going to value up at 330 to 350 once it's done. Is it possible to, I'm going to break the answer to the question down and answer bits as we go. Is it possible to get a bridging loan? Yes, absolutely. Bridging lenders routinely lend on unmortgageable properties. Yeah, shall I sit a bit higher then so you can see, at least you can see my eyes. If you can't see my lips moving, but they are, I promise you. Okay, so is it possible to get a bridging loan? Yes, it is. And put no money down on this due to purchasing it BMV. Okay, now there is where it gets more difficult. Now, on what basis are you purchasing it BMV? Because I can't see it. If you're buying a property for 220 that's worth 220, that's not BMV, that's the value. If you're saying it's BMV because it's worth 330 to 350, well, currently it isn't. That figure's only in your head right now. All it's worth is its true current value. So you know, a lot of people get confused on this. Oh, I'm buying it BMV because, you know, it needs a load of money spending on it. Well, are you buying it BMV then? Because buying BMV doesn't mean I'm going to buy it cheaper than it's going to be worth once I've spent a shed load of money on it. Buying BMV means whatever it's worth in its current condition, I'm buying less for that. A lot of people get confused on that. So putting no money down almost certainly isn't going to work, Russell. And that's because to buy it without a deposit, you probably need to be buying that less than 150,000 and then using a market value bridge. Almost certainly this is not a no money down deal, and very few deals are a no money down deal. Now, you've already pinged me privately and messaged me privately on this, so we're going to talk later today about this anyway, and I'll drill down into the numbers with you, Russell. But your last bit of it, is it possible to use a refurb bridge that will cover the cost of the actual refurb? Now, that is possible, yeah, because refurb bridges, a particular type of bridging, that pays for 100% of the refurb costs. So, yeah, that is. Okay, so we're going to, now, which one is this here? Well, so there we are, I'm back. So there we are. So good question to start off the day. Some more questions are rolling in. So thanks for that. And we'll scroll back to the beginning and crack on with the questions. So good one to start off. David Garcia, morning. David, thanks for your question. Recently bought my buy-to-let property in cash via a company. Okay. I want to get a mortgage now on a second one. How long until lenders consider me a landlord? Okay. Now, that depends which lender you're talking about, and lenders have different views on this. So if you already own a property, like you own your main residence, then you don't need to be an existing landlord to get a buy-to-let property, to get a buy-to-let mortgage, rather. So as long as you own a property already, there are standard mainstream buy-to-let mortgage lenders that will lend to you with no history of being a landlord. If you don't own any property now, so you happen to, you rent where you live, nothing wrong with that, but lenders don't particularly like that as much. So if you rent where you live and this is the first property you've actually bought, whether it's in your own name or a limited company, doesn't matter, then lenders will want you to own that for 6 months before they would consider giving you a mortgage. If you're going to be doing this as an HMO, i.e. 5 or more tenants, then the criteria ratchets up a little bit then. And with one or two exceptions, it's mostly 12 months with some lenders, but up to 3 years with other lenders. So, the way you're going to use the property has an influence on that. So, need any help on that, David? We'd be very happy to broker that mortgage for you. So just contact me privately. Let me put a link in there to my Facebook page, Property Finance Expert page. So yourself plus anyone else that wants to contact me, just chuck a message in there. Just getting that link, and I'm going to pop it in the chat box. Here we go. So if you want to talk about that specifically with me, David, and we'll drill down into the detail, just get in touch. That'd be great. Happy to do that. Thanks for your question. Now, let's scroll down. Making sure I don't miss any ones there. Here we are. So this is from Facebook user. Now I use a facility called StreamYard, and it puts this out in various places. Now, one of the things with StreamYard and Facebook is that StreamYard say that they need you to give permission to use your name when you post. And if you don't do that, it just comes up as Facebook user, which is the case in this case. And then when I drill down into the comments later on today, I'll find out who it is, and so that's okay. So I'm looking to acquire a BRRR property with private investor finance. So BRR, if you don't know what that is buy, refurb, refinance, and then rent out. Often it's called BRR. I have a brand for it called Recycle Cash, means the same thing. And the third R is stuck on there for renting it out. Yeah, okay. However, the investor will need funds retired. I guess that means returned. Returned before I'm likely to be able to mortgage. Would it be possible to get a bridge in as a short-term measure while the refinance takes place? Yeah, in principle, would be. Yeah, obviously the numbers will vary on that, and we'd need to look at the numbers, but yeah, that's possible. So yeah, in principle, the answer is yes. Okay, so there we are. Chris says, good morning. Here's Clive. Clive's working with me on my advanced level training, which is the Ninja Investor Program. So it's always good to see some of my students, if you want to call them that, popping on and asking questions. It's good. Looking forward to catching up with you later. Yes, we got a call arranged for later. You found a deal, and now we're crunching the numbers on it, because that's what I do with my students. I analyze their deals for them and make sure that it's a deal that works. And my objective there is to keep you safe as far as I possibly can, and not to invest in deals where you actually end up wishing you hadn't. So there we are. Really good to be working. Oh, it's pretty damn nice to be working with you too, Clive. You've opened up an extraordinarily exciting new chapter in my business. Well, I'm delighted that that's the outcome, and we're only really just, off of first base really in terms of working together. So there's a lot more to come, Clive, and I've got great hopes for you. So good. So there we are. That's more of a comment than a question, but that's okay. Genie says, where are we? Genie says, morning. Yeah, good to see you. You said you joined my Facebook group, but I didn't see it under a name of Genie. So maybe you want to send me a little message to give me your so I can tie up the two. Who Genie actually is. I mentioned my Facebook group a couple of times, so I might as well give you a link to that. Let's grab that. recycle your cash for property investors is what it's called. Let's get that. And pop it in the chat box. Here we go. Yeah, so if you're coming through on here today through the group, great. If you're not, and you're not a member of the group, why aren't you a member of the group? We do some good stuff in there, so come along. Come and join. It's getting interesting this week because we're probably going to hit that trigger of 1,000 members this week. So I'll be making a bit of a fuss about that in the group. Not the biggest group around yet, but it is growing. And you want to be part of it, I'd love to see you there. Okay, so thanks, Genie. There we are. Chris is back. Hello, Chris. Look at an end of terraced house. 300k with planning for another house alongside. Yeah, okay. So this is, so you've got an end of terrace and there's a bit of land to the side, which there often are. They're often built like that, enough to put another house on there. So that becomes the end terrace and your existing one becomes a mid terrace then. Yep. So that's okay. Both houses are worth 220 each once done against other comparables. Okay. So the house is overpriced as a standalone. How would the best way to purchase that out? Okay. I think it's overpriced with the planning by the looks of it. So you've got a 440 GDV, gross development value, Chris. Now, any development lender is going to want to see an absolute minimum 20% of GDV profit. So that's after everything. So you're looking at, so 220, that's 44. So you're looking at about 275, something like that. Sorry, 440, 20%. So you're looking at about an 85 grand. So 440, yeah, about 350. So, so for this to be a viable deal, Chris, if you're paying 300 for it, you've got 50 grand to build it, finance it, get any professional fees. So 300k on a 450 GDV is completely unworkable. So there is no way to finance this, and you'd be daft, and quite honestly, paying 300k for it. It's not worth even 250k. It's probably worth closer to 200, not 300. So what we got here is a seller over-egging the price and just being greedy, or as some people call it, flying a kite. So they've just thrown it on the market at 300 and said, let's see who's daft enough to pay this price. But it's absolutely not worth it. So what would be the best way to purchase it and build it out? Well, quite simply, the best way to purchase and build it out is development finance. But it's, yeah, I mean, unless you can buy this substantially below 300,000, based on what you've written here, and that's all I can go on. It's not, there's not even a ghost of a chance of getting any finance on that. No one's going to. No one's going to do that. But you know, if you want to drill down with me and we'll work out some numbers, Chris, then just message me and pop it into my inbox on the link I gave you, and let's chat on that. A couple of people saying good morning, so that's good to see. Chris has just popped up, both being BTLs. Yeah, I got that. Yeah, okay. Sumi Chowdhury, good to see you, Sumi. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Can you give us a really simple example of recycling your cash? Yeah, can do that. A deal that we brokered last year. Bought it for 64,000. Spent just over 30 on the refurb, and got it refinanced at 140 with a 75% mortgage on that. So that's recycling your cash, because buying it for 64, spending 30 on it, that's 94. By the time you've got a 75% mortgage, there's very little of that purchase price or refurb money left in the deal. So, they're not all as good as that, be honest with that. You do sometimes leave some cash in the deal, but the art is to leave less than 25% deposit and refurb costing. Good. Okay. So hopefully that's simple enough for you. David says, wow, 6 months is a long time. Well, it is if you need to wait that long. And as I said in earlier answer to your question, David, you might not need to wait that long. I don't know your circumstances. And I'm not suggesting you post them in publicly like that. But, if you want to contact me privately, then we'll drill down and see if indeed you do need to wait 6 months. You might not, depending on your circumstances. Okay, so have we got any more questions? Let me scroll down. Oh yeah, we've got quite a few here now. Always have to be very careful with me scrolling, because you can miss some, and I don't want to miss some. And if I do actually miss some, then or any, then I'll try and go back into the channel that you're coming through and pick them up and I'll answer them in the chat. Okay. So Sumi says, you got it. Yeah. So recycling your cash means the BRRR method. Yeah. BRR, however many R's you want to stick on it. Recycling cash, momentum investing. They're all different ways to describe the same thing, Sumi, which is to buy a property that needs improving, spend the money improving it, and then refinance it to pull as much of your cash back out. So the objective is to leave no cash in, none of your own cash in at all. Sometimes that's possible, often it's not. So it's just a question of minimizing the cash that you leave in the property. Yeah, there we are. Good. So there we are. So you're now clear on all of that, I hope. Tarek, there we are. Good to see you. We've been chatting over the last couple of weeks or so. You may have an investor coming on board to help fund the purchase of a commercial property. Okay. Can they put a charge on the property whilst the property is on bridging finance? Yeah, possibly. If they can, Tarek, it would only be a second charge because the bridger would have first charge. So we'd need to select the bridger. If we're doing this brokering for you, and I sincerely hope we are, if we're doing the brokering for you, we'd need to make sure we select a bridger that's comfortable with your investor having a second charge. So second charge is as good as it gets. Good question. Scrolling down carefully so I don't miss anyone. Here we are. Facebook user. I'll check out who you are and respond later. Regarding commercial lending, strength of the tenant and the lease was obviously a strong point previously. But with COVID, are we seeing a lot of changes? How are you seeing the lending side for things commercial? Exactly the same. Strength of the tenant and the lease is the main criteria. So strength of the tenant, what does strength of the tenant mean? Well, it means, is it Joe Blogg's barbershop or is it Costa Coffee? In other words, is it a single business, one shop business, or is it a national chain? I mean, it could be a regional chain, of course, as well. So it's, that's what it means by strength of the tenant. Now, the only thing that probably has changed is the trading business of the tenant and how it's been hit by COVID. So shops that haven't been able to, or businesses that haven't been able to trade during lockdown would probably be there'd be less appetite to lend on those. Do you believe going forward this will turn around when the dust settles? Yeah. Do you think so? You know, when it's clear that we're not going to have lockdowns anymore and the economy is not going to shut down anymore, and hopefully this is the last lockdown. Lockdown 3 is the last lockdown. I know Europe's going into more lockdowns, but hopefully the vaccination that we've got, program we've got, and the speed that it's accelerating and advancing at is means that we don't have to have lockdowns anymore. And then, you know, when businesses are open normally, you know, those that manage to survive, and sadly not all will, but those that manage to survive and can rebuild viable businesses, yeah, I think things are going to carry on as before. Also, how do lenders feel against lending against licenses, not leases? Well, not as keen, quite simply, because as you say, the lease is a strong point in underwriting a commercial mortgage, and licenses mean that there's no longevity to the tenancy. So if you've got a 15-year lease agreement, there's longevity. If you've got a license and they're simply got quick in and out things, it's not going to prevent you get lending, but it's going to restrict the number of lenders, and it's going to probably be at a higher rate. Good, thanks for your question. So Tarek's back with another one. Also, when you roll up the bridging finance into commercial mortgage, do you have to put down another deposit for the commercial mortgage? Well, that depends entirely on the value, Tarek. So how much value have you added whilst you did it out of bridging finance? So you're not going to get a commercial mortgage above 75% of the uplifted value. So if you've managed to uplift that sufficiently, then to 75% of the uplifted value, possibly it would mean you don't need a deposit. But if you haven't, then you will. So you're going to need the balance of 25% deposit, because commercial lending is at most at 75%. Yeah, again, you know, these are all sort of, what would you call them? Non-specific questions. Now, when I'm training on my Ninja Investor program, there's a phrase that I repeat time and time and time and time again, and that is, it becomes real when it's your deal. So when we can drill down into the numbers and see exactly what you're looking to do, all of this becomes clear. So there we are. Good. So another Facebook user, I think you missed the question. If I did, I apologize. I try to be as careful as I can, but thank you for reposting it. When the interest is retained on a development or bridging loan at exit, okay, so development loans, when you're talking about retained, I think you actually mean, now, do you mean retained? Because in one of the videos I did, I talk about the three types of interest: retained, serviced, and rolled up. So retained means that if you've got a 12-month bridging loan, they take the 12 months up front and retain the interest. So now bridging loans work like that. Development loans never do. Development loans are always rolled up interest, where the interest is added on month by month and you settle at the back end. So I'm not quite sure in which context you're using retained. Feel free to enlighten me. But let's go with the rest of the question. It's retained on an exit. You have to pay only the amount released plus exit charges. Okay, so I think you're saying if they take off the interest up front, let's assume that we're talking about that, which they'll never do on a development loan. If they'll take the interest up front, then you've only got to pay the amount released plus the exit charges. Yeah. Now, bridgers generally don't have exit charges at all. Development lenders do. So really, the interest rate doesn't matter if it's 1% or 2% on a retained bridging loan, as long as the amount released is what you expect to complete the works. Well, in one sense, it doesn't matter, but in another sense, it matters a lot, because the higher the rate, the less profit you're going to make, or the more contingency, the more uplift you've got to build in to make that deal work. I mean, no bridge is going to charge you 2% a month. Certainly, only matters if you default on a loan. Yeah. So yeah, there's some mismatching going on there. Retained interest is the default option for bridging loans, but rolled up interest is the default option for development loans. So there's a little bit of differential there. So if you want to drill down a bit more, I'm happy to do that, and we can pick this up later if you want to. Thanks for your question, Zach. There we are. One of our regulars. Good to see you back again. Bought a house for 68k 5 months ago on a buy-to-let with the mortgage TMW, the Mortgage Works. Completed the refurb, and it's now rented out at 525. How much do you think I can pull out, either further advance or remortgage? Okay, well, you need to have it 6 months to be able to ask TMW for a further advance, and and you don't want to be refinancing it, because you would have got it under false. But I don't know whether you intended to do that, but redeeming that mortgage and then refinancing it, really you haven't played. If that was your intention all along, Zach, it may not be, but you haven't played fair with TMW, because if you'd have told them, hey, can I have a mortgage? Can you give me a mortgage? I probably only want to keep it a few months, and then I'm going to just pay it back to you. They'd have said no. Now let's find one of my videos, because I say why this is buy, refurb, refinance. Why you can't be using mortgages as the method to buy that. I'm not suggesting you did that deliberately, but this is for general knowledge for both you and anyone else watching this. Let me find a video that I did. Okay, let's now copy that, pop that in here. Okay, so when we're done here, watch this video, Zach. There you go. It's just going in the chat now, and you've done a couple of other posts on there, so I'm going to see what you've put here. Okay, new value of the house would be 95 to 100k. Okay, well, the best you're going to get is pretty much 75% of that, or the best at a decent rate. And you put 25% down. Yeah. So so if it's worth 95 to 100, you're going to get what? Just over 70 to 75. So if you paid 68 for it and it's only worth 95 now, you're going to get back next to nothing. So you probably get five grand back. So I hope you haven't spent 20 grand refurbing it, because you're not going to get any of that back out. So at most, based on it being worth 95 to 100, you're going to pull out 5 to 7 grand. So the very best thing to do there is to see if you can get a further advance from the Mortgage Works. Yep. Okay. Need any help on that, Zach? I know we've talked several times, so just get in touch and I'll help you with that. Okay. There we are. So we've got a few more questions. Okay, so we're over my nominal 30 minutes now, but that normally happens. So where we are. So Chris says to his earlier question, thanks, mate. I thought this, just wanted to double check. Yeah. Okay. Vastly overpriced, but if you want any help, get in touch. JC's back. Hello, JC. Good to see you. One of my regulars. Do bridges always send out values to carry out a valuation, or do they sometimes do desktop? No. Almost certainly they're going to use proper physical valuations. During the first lockdown 1 a year ago, when no one could go anywhere, and it was probably the most severe lockdown, they had no option but to try and use desktops. But they'd never really used desktops before, and they're not doing so. You know, there might be 1 or 2 bridges that do that, but generically, bridges like to actually get someone, you know, boots on the ground type of thing, and they like to get in there and actually get a physical valuation done. So that answers that part. Second question there is, do loans start to count after completion of the purchase? Yeah, because until the money's left the bridger's account to their solicitor, which then goes to your solicitor, then the bridging loan isn't actually effective, doesn't start until that transfer of money happens. So yeah, before up to that point, it's an application. Once the money's transferred over and you've got it, then and you've used it to buy the property, in most cases. I mean, obviously you can get bridging loans on properties you already own, but yeah. So the loan starts when you get your hands on the money. Good, simple question. There we are. Rhiannon, thanks for your question. Your mum is 60 years old and her current mortgage ends at 70. Can she remortgage up to age 75? And are there interest-only mortgages available for her group? Thanks for the advice. Okay, so okay, historically, well, let's keep that up on screen. Historically, lenders granted mortgages only up to the age of 65 because that was the standard retirement age, and most people retired at 65. Now, you know, things have changed probably in the last 20 to 30 years, and it's more common for people to work beyond 65. And of course, occupation is going to have a big factor in that. You know, if it's non-manual occupation, it's more likely that you're physically, health-wise, going to be able to work beyond 65 if you choose to. So there are lenders that would lend up to age 75. Yes, there are. There are lenders that lend beyond that, but the older you want a mortgage to finish at, the less lenders is your choice. Now, another option is a lifetime mortgage or equity release mortgages. That's where you don't actually make any payments on it, but you just effectively roll up the interest until you leave the property. And typically there's 3 ways to leave the property. You move to a smaller property, you go into long-term care, or you die, unfortunately. So one of those 3 on an equity release mortgage, that's the interest is rolled up and paid at that point. Interest rates aren't great, so that might not be the first option you go to. Interest only mortgages, that's a very different thing. Now, they used to be standard on main residence mortgages until the credit crunch just over a decade ago, and now they're not. So the FCA leaned very hard on mortgage lenders to lend responsibly, and lend responsibly means that at the end of the mortgage term, the mortgage is repaid, commonly known as a repayment mortgage. Now, because the FCA frown very heavily on giving people interest-only mortgages on their main residence, there's a number of lenders that don't even offer that option. And other lenders offer the option, but with strings attached in various ways. And loan to value is going to be a key thing here. Interest-only mortgages typically, for those lenders that do them, and not all lenders do, are at no more than 50% loan to value. You know, there are variations on all these things, of course, but you know, broadly speaking. So it's possible, but we need to drill down into the details. If you want to hook up, Rhiannon, just ping me a message in my property finance expert page. Put the link in there earlier. Thanks for your question. Okay, here's another one, another Facebook user. We'll see who that is later today. So I've written to the owner of any property at the address land registry shows as the current owner, but letter is returned as not at this address. Okay, well, they probably moved, I guess. What would you do next? Is there anything else other than sending to the actual empty property? Yeah, well, that probably isn't going to work either. You might want to actually drive to the address that's shown on land registry and then knock either side and say, hey, I thought so-and-so lived here, whatever the person's name is, but I've been writing to them, but their letters have been coming back. Do you know where they've gone? Try that. That might work. Here's Ben. Hello, good to see you, Ben. Are there specific mortgages for service accommodation holiday lets, or can you generally do a buy-to-let mortgage? Yes, no, is the answer to that. So yes, there are specific mortgages for service accommodation and holiday lets, and it's not always the same thing. So there are some holiday let lenders that will let you do holiday lets, but not service accommodation. What's the difference, you might ask? Well, holiday lets generally are let in blocks of 7 days. So you have 7 days, 14 days, almost universally, possibly 21 days. So they're let in blocks of 7 days. That's a holiday let. Now, service accommodation could be let by the night, much like a guest house. So some of the holiday let lenders actually don't let you let on a per night basis. There are 2 types of lenders. If you've got an established business, then well, for holiday lets, there are some mortgage lenders that do specific holiday let products. For service accommodation, there are commercial lenders that if you've got a trading SA business, that they would that you can show how good you are at filling the property or properties, depending on how big your business is and how profitable you are. There are commercial lenders that would lend on that basis in exactly the same way as they would lend on a guest house or a bed and breakfast. Essentially, it's the same thing. You can't do a buy-to-let mortgage. Actually, I'm going to pop a video here, Ben, because I've done a couple of videos on this. So let me find those videos and we'll pop those in. Right. Now, where are we? Okay, let's going to pop this in the chat box, Ben. So when we're done here, go and watch this video. Okay. So quick summary is that you breach about 3 terms and conditions of a standard buy-to-let mortgage lender when you do holiday serviced accommodation or holiday lets, in terms of the length of the contract, the type of rental agreement, certainly being 2 of them, and the relationship between the owner and the tenant. So you absolutely can't use buy-to-let mortgages, and if you try that and the lender finds out, as they often do, they'll send you a cease and desist letter saying stop doing this or we'll call the mortgage in. Yeah, so now let me find you the other video, which is what's the correct mortgage for short-term lets. And I'll give you the if you haven't got a fully fledged trading business, then there are certain buy-to-let lenders that would still lend. We know who they are and we can broker these for you, Ben. So there's the other video to go in there. So thanks for your question. But if you're going to do service accommodation or holiday lets, it's very important that you get the right mortgage. Really important. Okay, and we know how to help you on that. Okay, so here we are. KS coming through YouTube. Morning, KS. Is it possible to switch my residential repayment mortgage to interest only when my fix is up? If possible, are they easy to get, and are they like buy-to-let interest only or tougher criteria? Well, I sort of answered that already, didn't I, KS? That the restrictions on interest only. So no, you're going to find it really difficult to get interest only. Now we can look for you, but you know, interest only mortgages, you need to have either the money to pay it off sitting in other investments like shares or ISAs. So in other words, you're taking interest only, but at any time you can choose to pay that off because you've got enough assets in other investments to clear it. Some lenders allow you to have a lump sum pension, and you need to show you'd already got pension arrangements, or you're making enough contributions into an investment, or it's below 50%. So no, they're not easy at all. Deliberately so. The FCA doesn't want you having interest only mortgages on your main residence. So they've told lenders to make it as difficult as possible. It is possible, but you've got a number of barriers to jump over. And I know why you want to do it, because you want to lower your mortgage payments down. So yeah, but that's not an acceptable reason in most cases. So there we are. Thanks for your question. So we're still banging on with a couple more here. So there's some more stuff to go. So one from a Facebook user: on a new build, when it comes to mortgaging, if there is a 10-year professional consultant certificate in place which covers structural defects, is that enough for mortgages, or do you need a 10-year full structural warranty? It's going to vary lender to lender. So some lenders want a full NHBC guarantee or equivalent. Other lenders might want less. So it's going to vary lender to lender. Some say, good morning. Where and how do you find commercial purchases? Very simple, commercial estate agents. Yeah, like there's you're used to residential estate agents. There are also commercial estate agents. There we are. Jason, there we are. I'm disappearing again, but I'm still here. Okay. Currently me remortgaging a few properties at the same time. Okay. Gave all the documents requested to your broker. Each new remortgage provider is asking for the same documentation. Yeah, they would do, because they don't know you've given it to someone else. My question is, should the broker provide it all on your behalf as already supplied it? Yes, they should. No, you don't have to provide it all again, because that's why you're using a broker. Your broker has collated your information and can farm that out to every lender. I believe that would be the role of the broker. Well, if we were brokering it, Jason, that would be our role. Yeah. So hopefully that answers your question. Here we are. Let's, again, I'm being very careful with scrolling here so I don't, because it sometimes lurches and jumps down. Here we are. Roger. Okay. Is there a problem with buy-to-let investors who own property in the UK but live permanently overseas? The reason I asked this letter from my mortgage company, I wanted to know his answers. Yeah, absolutely there is, Roger. Because the base criteria of the vast majority of UK mortgage lenders is that the borrower is currently resident in the UK. If you're not currently resident in the UK, in fact, I had someone talk to me about this last week. They've received a letter from their mortgage lender that's calling the mortgage. They're saying, we're aware that you're no longer a resident in the UK, therefore you've got 6 months to give us our money back. Yep. So don't know whether you actually live in the UK or not, but or whether it's just a, you know, it was a strange question. You didn't didn't know the answer. So you live in the UK. So yeah, real big problem. The solution is there are what's called expat mortgages. So Brits living anywhere in the world can get expat buy-to-let mortgages. Yeah, so and we do those on a reasonably regular basis. There we are. Okay, Facebook user here saying regarding PS 13/3, does it apply when you're JV or is it all deal packaging? Example, sourcing. Okay, so PS 13/3 is an FCA directive. It came out in January 2014. It's been succeeded or added to, not replaced, added to by successive directives from the FCA. And the primary function is to protect the retail consumers, i.e. general public. Retail consumers is the FCA's language, from unregulated investments. And these are ones that they haven't personally approved. So now it's people putting money into deals. If you're selling a deal, then PS 13/3 and all the restrictions around sophisticated investors do not apply to sourcing, because you're just saying, here's a deal, do you want to buy it? And that's very different from saying, hey, I've got this fantastic deal, give me some money so I can do it. Two very different things. Hopefully that answers your question. Here we are. So that's the same one. So Mike, you've now released your name. So there we are. Hope you got the answer you wanted there, Mike. There we are. Good. So Rhiannon's back. If my mum takes a new mortgage, how long before she can apply for consent to let? Well, in theory, 6 months. But it's all about intent, Rhiannon. So if you're getting a new mortgage with the clear intent of renting it out as soon as you can, then don't be getting a main residence mortgage and asking for consent to let. Get the right mortgage, which is a buy-to-let mortgage. So consent to let is given typically for people that bought a property, lived in it, had a change of circumstances, and now don't live in it or don't want to live in it. Because the intention was pure. The intention is, I want to buy this property to live in it. I have lived in it, probably for a few years. The intent is not pure if you're saying, I want to get a residential mortgage at preferential interest rates just so I can rent it out at the first opportunity. If you disclose that to your main residence mortgage lender as part of the application, they kick out your application. So just do it the right way, Rhiannon. 4 hours away. Not sure what that means, but okay. Now there's a name, isn't it? So ambitious, Dom. There we are. Don't know whether that's a Dominic or whatever, but there we are. Can I use bridging finance on a residential property I plan to live in? Yes, it's called a regulated bridge because main residence mortgages have to be regulated by the FCA, and that extends to bridging loans. So bridging lenders have to be bridging loans for a main residence mortgage. So bridging loans for a main residence have to be regulated by the FCA. And there's most bridges are not regulated by the FCA because they don't want to lend on your main residence. They just want commercially minded investments. But yeah, you can use an FCA regulated bridger. The goal will be to add value, extend the loft, and remortgage and clear the bridging loan debt. Yeah, in principle, that's possible. Now, where you might find issues is if you already own the property on a mortgage and you say, right, I've got a mortgage, but I want a bridging loan to put an extension in. So now you're in a catch-22 situation because bridgers, some bridgers don't lend on a second charge basis, and those that do will only lend on the current value. So the difficulty, I'm not sure if this is the situation, but the difficulty with that situation is essentially you've got to add the value before you can borrow the money. So that's where that idea normally falls flat. But your situation may be different. You want to drill down into your exact situation, ping me a message on my Facebook Property Finance Expert page. Let's see if we've got any more here. Or are we? A few more people saying morning. There we are. Okay, here we go. PR Max is back again. Good to see you, PR. Does the existing mortgage 50% limited lender need to know about the second charge if we take some money for a deposit through bridging? They do need to know about a second charge, because in most cases they've got to give their permission for you to put a second charge on it. So there's very few lenders that won't say you've got to have our permission to put a second charge on it. So you need to ask them for their permission. Oh, okay. So you asked the same question twice. There we are. Are furnished holiday lets classified as SA or holiday lets? If you let them in 7-day tranches, holiday lets. Tarek says, much appreciated. Good. Okay. All right. Jason's back. I may need to change brokers. Well, maybe you do. And let me tell you, you'll find a welcome home with our brokerage, Jason. So Tony's here. Please enlighten me. Well, that's what I try to do. That's the purpose of these Q&A sessions. I do try and enlighten you. And actually, if you want even more enlightenment, usually on the first Saturday of the month, I run my Property Finance Masterclass, which is a live stream event. So you can come spend pretty much half a day with me, 10 till 3. And give you a whole load more information about how to be successful using the BRR strategy, or recycle cash, as I like to call it. So let me give you a link for that. I've got one happening in April. It's not going to be on the first Saturday like it normally is, because the first Saturday is Easter Saturday. I'm sure people don't want to spend their Easter Saturday doing that, talking to me. So it's going to run the following Saturday on the 10th of April. Copying that, I'm just going to pop the link into that here. There we are. So if you think this is good, come to the Property Finance Masterclass, and I'll be sharing a lot more information about how you can be successful using the BRR strategy. But now back to the question. Using a BRR strategy after buy-to-let mortgage, the total money to pay back is doubled, provided using interest only. What's the best exit strategy? Okay. Not quite sure what you're talking about on the total money payback is doubled, provided using interest only. So you'd have to explain why you think it would be double. I'm not sure it would be double. What is the best exit strategy? Well, there's only one exit strategy. If you're doing buy, refurb, refinance, you're doing that because you want to keep the property and rent it out to tenants. And the only finance that enables you to rent it out to tenants is a mortgage. Now, it could be a buy-to-let mortgage or an HMO mortgage or a holiday let or serviced accommodation or whatever type of mortgage you want. There are a number of different distinctions on that, but it's a mortgage. So that's how you do it. So fairly simple thing there. Oh, yeah. So it is Dominic. There we are. Okay. Yeah. So my powers of deduction are on point this morning. Good. Okay. So Liam's here. Recently paid off your parents' house using a homeowner's loan. Okay. Renting my house out, me and my partner, children moved in with them. Okay. We're now looking to put the house in my name so I can release equity to buy them a smaller property. Is this possible? Okay. So what you've got is on the deeds, it says your parents own it, but they own it unencumbered now because there's no mortgage on it. So assuming that is because you've got a homeowner's loan not on that property. I'm making assumptions there based on what you've written. So can you put the house in there? Can you put their house in your name? Yeah. Now there are going to be potential inheritance tax issues on there, and I'm not going to drill. I don't talk about tax because that's not my area of expertise, and I'm not qualified to talk about that. But you would need to check whether any inheritance tax issues on that. But in principle, yeah, they can sign the house over to you. You can get a mortgage on it because it's your main residence. You can buy them a smaller property. So that smaller property can be in your name and they can rent it off you. That would be called a consumer buy-to-let because on most buy-to-let properties, you can't rent to family. So there'd be restrictive lenders on that. But yeah, in theory, Liam, all possible. Want some help on that? Ping me a message and we'll get our brokers working on that for you. Good. Thanks for your question. Have we got anyone else here? Here we are. All right, there we are. Joseph, there we are. Good to see you. What's the difference between a house share and an HMO? I believe I can get a normal mortgage for a house share, but a specialist mortgage for an HMO. Well, the difference really is number of tenants. Okay, if you've got 2 or 3 people sharing a house, in most cases, in most areas, that's not an HMO. If you've got 4 or more people, you come under HMO regulations. So typically, most buy-to-let lenders only allow you to have a single AST. They only allow a single AST rental basis. So if you've got more than one person in there, unless they're all on one AST, you're in breach of the mortgage conditions, Joseph. If you've got up to 4, then there's a few buy-to-let lenders that allow you to have up to 4 on separate ASTs. More than 4 on separate ASTs, you're looking at HMO lending. Good. So, okay, so you've refined your question. You meant our serviced accommodation, holiday lets, both classified as FHL by the government. Now, where's that question? There we are. So, yeah, as far as I know, they are furnished holiday lets. Now, you might find serviced accommodation if you're renting by the night. That might be a different thing. Now, to be clear on this, my area of expertise is around lending, not government classifications. So you'd probably need to Google that one because that, I can tell you what how lenders treat serviced accommodation and holiday lets, but how the government treats it, that's not my area of expertise, really, to be honest. Okay, well, there we are. We seem to have come to the end. We've done all the questions for the day. So if you've enjoyed this, then come back next week, because next Monday, 8:30, I'll be doing it all again. So have a fantastic week, whatever you're doing property-wise. Have a great week. Oh, there we are. So we've got one more question. Sumi says, what topics do you cover on your Recycle Your Cash course? Strange enough, recycling your cash. So it's about, so I cover why you've got to embrace what I call inspired funding. Uninspired funding is just getting buy-to-let mortgages, putting 25% down. That's never going to really push you along at the rate that you want to get on. So you've got to, I'll be telling you why you've got to embrace non-standard finance. So why you have got to relinquish your total reliance on mortgages. I'll be talking about why you've got to stand out from the crowd when you're talking to estate agents. I'll be talking about what I term as investor fatigue, and that is that in varying levels, estate agents are pissed off with investors because they view most of them as time wasters, exasperated by all the sources now, because there's a plethora of sources that are going around making offers on properties that they've got no possibility of buying because they haven't got the means to buy a property. That's why they're sourcing. So estate agents, and we're seeing this quite often now, that estate agents, to block out sources from wasting their time, they're saying they want proof of funds before you can do a viewing. You know, estate agents are broadly fed up with investors because there's such a lot of dross around. You know, I don't decry anyone who want to better themselves, but there are too many wannabes with no ideas. So estate agents, you've got to be pretty smart with an estate agent now to get in with them. And I talk about how to do that. I talk about why giving away 50% of your profits to finance your deals is a misaligned strategy. I talk about the importance, if you're recycling your cash, the importance of aligning yourself with how mortgage lenders, valuers think, because most investors don't. They just get refinance down valuations because they misunderstand what a mortgage lender's value is looking for when they're refinancing, trying to pull their cash out. And I'll be talking about what I call ninja investor strategies. These are radically different ways to finance property purchases, which minimize the cash that you put down and maximize the speed at which you get it back out of the deal again, and also minimize the amount of cash that gets stuck in a property. So that's pretty much what I'll be talking about. Rhiannon says, thanks so much for your time. No, I'm glad you really appreciate it. That's why I do it. That helps. See, I thought I was going, but people are coming in. Eric's got one. Is there any mortgage between holiday let and ASTs, such as letting between 1 and 6 months for a lower rate? No, there's not. You're either on an AST or you're renting by the week or by the night. And unless you're on a holiday let or serviced accommodation, you're duty bound to offer them AST. And if you try and offer them less than an AST, as I understand it, the law says they'll treat it as an AST and give them all the rights of an AST anyway. So no, there isn't, Eric. You know, one or the other. Good. Hope that helps. Be nice to see you on April the 10th. See me. Okay, so looks like we are done now. So if you're watching the replay, then give us a hashtag replay just so I know you've watched it. That'd be great. And have a fantastic week. See you next Monday, 8:30.